Millions of Americans headed out for the long Memorial Day weekend. Travel expected to surpass pre-pandemic numbers. CNBC's Phil LeBeau joins us with a special guest. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Sarah. Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, joining us here at O'Hare. You know this is the big test this weekend. What are you most worried about?
Well, look, we're watching the system closely because we're going to see some of the biggest volumes of traffic we've seen since before the pandemic. So far, so good. Matter of fact, yesterday, preliminary numbers suggest we did see the most passengers getting on airplanes that we've seen at any time since before COVID. And the system held up quite well. We saw less than 1% of flights canceled. But we do have some weather coming in. What I'm really looking for is resilience in the system. You can't control the weather, but when you do get weather in a certain part of the country or when an issue comes up, how quickly can the airlines recover? We pushed them a lot last year to build more resilience into the system, and we're seeing a lot of indications of that.
And you know that you have the situation where you've got pilots been added, flight attendants who have been added. But we talked to Scott Kirby, CEO of United Airlines, not long ago, earlier this week. He said, look, we still need more air traffic controllers. And he's concerned that when you add in the potential for these fines that have been proposed for excessive delays, there could be a safety risk in the system. When you hear him say safety may be called into question, what's your reaction?
Well, the idea that an airline can't operate safely while also compensating passengers if you get stuck by covering your hotel or giving you a cash compensation, that makes no sense to me. I expect every airline to always put safety first. We require that, and it just does not add up to me that if an airline has to compensate a passenger when they screw up, that's somehow going to cause them to operate less safely. Now, what I do agree with him on is that we do need to grow our air traffic control workforce. We're doing that right now. We're hiring like crazy, and that's going to be important to continue building on in the years ahead.
Speaking of air traffic controllers and the system and adding more technology to make the system more efficient, the debt deal talks that are going on, and if there's a spending cap, non-defense discretionary budgets will be hit, like the FAA. Will we see a limit in terms of how much you can spend on future technology if there's a spending cap put in place?
Well, I can't speak to all the details of negotiations that are playing out right now. What I will say is sometimes in Washington, non-defense discretionary is kind of code for not that important. I think FAA is a great example of how something doesn't have to be in the Pentagon to be extremely important for our economy and for our country. And it's why we're going to continue working with the funds we have and seeking to get the right kind of funding to hire air traffic controllers, modernize our systems, and do all the other things that the flying public counts on. You got to remember, in terms of bang for our buck, we have an incredible return on the investments that are made in the FAA. When you think about the fact that we have 16 million flights a year, and in this complicated airspace, air travel is the safest way to travel.
But it's not the most efficient, Mr. Secretary, with all due respect. Everybody in the industry admits the technology could be better.
Yeah,
we could have more air traffic controllers. You could train more air traffic controllers. Yeah. And yet it seems like a continual, we need more, we need more, we need more, and Congress doesn't want to give you that money. What do you say when these budget talks are going on?
Well, what I'll say is that you get a good value for money when you invest in our transportation systems, whether it's the operations of the FAA or whether it's the infrastructure improvements we're making, including, by the way, at airports around the country that are going to make them safer, not just high-tech stuff. Sometimes the best technology is concrete. We're designing end-around taxiways that make it less likely that you wind up with a runway incursion. All of these things, whether they're talking about aviation, roads and bridges and all the work we're doing there, rail, transit, all of that adds up into a foundation for our economy to grow. And we take very seriously our responsibility to take these funds and put them to good use.
Quickly, I want to ask you about the EV industry. Ford striking a deal with Tesla so that they will have access to the Tesla superchargers and use the Tesla system, the protocol, the NACS protocol. Should there just be one system? I mean, aren't we kind of looking at a Betamax versus VHS situation here? Should it all go over to the Tesla NACS system?
Well, we're not going to pick winners and losers in terms of what standard prevails. I do think in the end we're going to converge toward a system that is one for everybody. But one important difference, unlike VHS and Beta, is that there are ways to use adapters so that one kind of charger can charge another kind of car. Look, Tesla has built an extraordinary network already, and in a country that's racing to have the kind of national charging network we need, for them to be part of this effort, I think is terrific news. We need to make sure that it works in a way that different people can have access to, but my early impression of this deal is it's going to support exactly exactly that. And again, we don't pick which business or which technology is going to prevail. We do set a basic standard so that everybody can benefit from any kind of charging network where taxpayer money is involved. And we see that happen.
What do you do? What do you say to those who use the public chargers that are out there right now, mainly non-Tesla ones, and they say they're broken, they're not working, they're slow, they're inefficient?
Yeah.
Does there need to be more of a push to say, if you're going to put these chargers in place, make sure they work?
Yeah, absolutely. We're pushing on reliability. We're pushing on price transparency, interoperability too. It can't be. Imagine if you could only fill up at a Speedway if you were a member of Speedway and had their app, not at BP. We want to make sure that there's that same level of interoperability, and we're requiring that for anything where public dollars are involved. Look, we would never accept a 10, 20, 30% downtime at a gas station. We can't accept that on electric chargers either, and it's one of the reasons why we're raising the floor with the standards that are attached to our investments.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg joining us here on a relatively calm day at O'Hare. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
Don't jinx it, Phil. Thanks. Phil LeBeau this morning.